the franchise model changes people's lives. And a lot of times, we have people who are coming in as assistant operators. Maybe they're struggling with certain items that are just not getting across the finish line, and watching them be able to blossom, their organization, both in growth and profitability, just finally getting rid of the anxiety of not knowing where they stand financially, having a community where they can have a conversation where they're not alone anymore. It's a blessing to watch these people, turn their lives better because they get to be part of this community.
You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Wil Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, let's begin. All right, welcome back. And this is a very, very special live at VRMA where I'm sitting with Steve Schwab. Welcome. Good to see you again.
Great to be here, man.
Of course. And Joe with Patriot, is it Family Vacation Rentals?
Patriot Family Homes.
Patriot Family Homes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us. I hear you guys have quite the announcement for the listeners today.
Yeah, we do. So we're super excited to be joining the Casago family.
Yes.
So we got about 600 units. Mainly in the Southeast, spread across several markets. And we started this process. We started Patriot Family Homes back in 2018, really worked a company until 2019. And it was started while I was deployed in Afghanistan. Actually, Steve and I were both in the same unit in the Army.
Same time or just, I was going to say, a little bit older. I was going to say, you look young enough to be in the same.
Still riding horses.
Still got the
And so
we didn't have horses.
The cavalry.
Technology. But I started out with our own home. I was deployed in Afghanistan, started getting more homes.
Yeah.
And then as we moved to different bases, we started going to other bases. And long story short, we were focused on just a couple markets, and we're heavily involved in those local communities and those homeowners and with our employees there, had great margins. And then as we started getting to kind of 10, 12, 15, 18, plus markets, all of a sudden that connection to the local community, the connection to those local homes, the homeowners and employees began to fray. And that resulted in, frankly, lower guest satisfaction, lower homeowner satisfaction, higher homeowner churn, and ultimately higher cost and lower profitability. And so we started this journey earlier this year of trying to say, how do we restore that local entrepreneurial ownership mentality in a system that had gotten quite large?
Yeah.
And the answer we arrived on is an answer that many other industries have reached, which is franchising is the best way to give you the benefits of a national, in Casago's case, international brand, but still keep in place those local ownership, mentality. Yeah. So we thought about doing our own franchise. We went out, interviewed all the other franchise concepts. So we talked to iTrips and Skyrun and a bunch of other franchises.
Oh, you're answering my next question. I was like, how did you pick Casago out of all of them? Like this.
And I mean, I think all the other guys, each company has its own offering for sure.
Yeah.
But the key decisions for us were, I think really my view on it is those other companies are focused more on kind of greenfielding somebody from scratch. And certainly Casago has done that.
Yeah.
But because of Steve's experience and the systems he's built, and frankly, the pricing that he's put in place made the decision to make it much more attractive to existing operators who want to say, look, to take my business from good to great. Whether it be from a technology, a training, branding, marketing, homeowner recruitment, any of those concepts, we felt that the offering to the existing operator was just not even close with Casago versus another concept.
Yeah.
And that's why we made the decision to come over to Casago. And then the last thing I'll say is really the community. And, the health of a franchise system is only as good as the quality of its franchisees.
For sure.
And how happy its franchisees are with the franchisor.
Yeah.
And, without throwing anybody under the bus, there was a clear difference in the level of satisfaction and quality, in our view, between the Casago franchisees and how happy they were with the franchise.
That's awesome. What makes Patriot Vacation Homes a great partner to join the Casago franchise? Because I know when you're running a franchise, you probably do get a lot of people that are like, hey, like, yeah, like kind of like a lifeline almost, where they're just looking for something. But obviously you have to go through the vetting yourself. So what makes Patriot so good to join?
Yeah, well, really, when we think about like bringing in a franchise, it's not just a one-way interview; it's a two-way interview. We're having discussions with them about what's our value. We're also looking at them: are they a good cultural fit? Yeah. Are these people who are serious about the industry, about their business? Are they looking to bring back that local mentality? Are they competent and willing to put the work in? And quite honestly, I mean, Joe's one of the hardest workers I know. The amount of production he puts out in a day is freaking amazing, and the culture that he built over at Patriot, was fantastic. And really fit into a lot of what we do at Casago. So, bringing in such a large, single operator, and then with all these different markets, it was important to make sure that they fit in well with the community. We got this beautiful community of people who really love each other, but also love what we're doing, and making sure that he fit in really well. And Joe built an organization that fits in perfectly with what we're doing. With our shared background being Army Rangers, I think there is a lot of with the organization built on principles and systems and processes. And I think that's really a big part of what drives the synergies that go on with this. And then he just has some really great markets that, quite frankly, are very different than what we're normally into. So it creates a diversity of inventory and portfolio. And then, going forward, just building something better.
Yeah. I got a couple things I'd add on that. Like, if you look at a hotel brand or chain, right, they have obviously hotel properties that are focused in traditional leisure areas, which is where you see most of your vacational inventory. But they also then obviously have hotels in, urban markets that cater more to business travel.
True.
And, that's on the Patriot side, we've been focused more on what we would call utility or urban or non-traditional leisure markets. And we think that that's a really powerful thing to be able to show, other franchisees that, look, even if you're not in a traditional vacation market, there's a lot of demand for this in those urban markets. And Casago is a great group to partner with. And going off Steve, what said on the culture point, the Ranger Creed, at Casago, you got the Orange Creed. And so a lot of those
some similar or familiarity with that structure, right? Like, I was Army as well, but not Ranger. So you guys are way cooler than me. But it's like, in general, I want to ask you guys both this question, because when you being such a bigger operator and you guys having already a well-established network of franchises, how do you guys decide on this two-way interview, to make sure that you're not impeding on another current already Casago franchise? Like, how do you guys have the same kind of structure like Marriott? Like, you can't be within certain block radius or?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so, all the territories that we contract and work with our partners are protected areas, right? So if there had been overlap or something like that, that'd have been a difficulty, but we were lucky enough that there wasn't that sort of overlap. And part of that protected areas builds a community in which we never have to worry about people competing with each other. And so there's a lot more cooperation under that model, right? So when we come to CostaCon, we just came back from Mexico City, everybody was willing to share everything because we knew that nobody there was a competitor, right? I mean, they were laying it all open and having great discussions, being, emotional discussions sometimes. And, not only what was going great, but, where were they struggling, and people were, gathering around them and making sure to support each other. And I think that's a big part of why it's successful. But when it comes to that, the answer is, protected areas for all those involved.
Yeah. And I'll say on our end, I mean, one reason why we wanted to, move with Casago as well is I do think if you look at our adjacent industries of being hotels, home service companies, real estate brokerages, all three of those industries are heavily permeated with franchises. Franchising hasn't made as big a splash as you might have expected in our industry yet. And I think the only reason why that has not happened is because you have these large kind of tech companies, VC type companies that brought in and tried to disintermediate that natural progression towards franchising. But I think now that those central ownership models across, many markets have really struggled, if not, frankly, outright failed. I think the next wave of growth and scaling in the industry is going to come through this franchising approach. And because it's an area of protection, we wanted to make sure that we got our area of protection before somebody else got there first.
True.
And so that was a powerful moment because it's a 10-year, it's a marriage. It's basically a marriage.
Yeah.
So part of that is obviously the franchisee. We had to get comfortable with becoming part of this new entity for 10 years. Yeah. But the other part of that is we get that protection, that guarantee, and that we're going to have exclusive access. And so it was really important for us to get that across all of our markets. And we wanted to make sure we were able to do that with the brand that we felt had the best chance to truly scale the industry and make a big difference.
My, I guess, final question for you, since you have all these homes under your portfolio, what's the response from an owner? Is it a positive feedback that there's now not only your guys' brand, but another brand that's overseeing professionalism and growth and all the other stuff that you guys are doing?
Absolutely. I mean, I was talking with one of our owners, and I should say in order to fully substantiate this concept, we're taking not all, but many of our markets and selling them to new prospective franchisees. So that's then the entrepreneur. They're going to buy the business, they get the brand, and then they're going to manage those homes, many of which we actually own. One other unique feature of our business is we own a lot of the underlying real estate.
Yeah.
And so we've already had 16, 17 LOIs come in. And a lot of these folks, it is actually the fact that it is a franchise concept that's attracted them in because it gives them the certainty of a kind of structure and guidance and guardrails. But from an owner perspective, I was talking with one of our larger owners that he owns 20, 30, 40 homes. Yeah. And he said, look, how do I know that my home is going to be managed as well as it was before? And I said, well, let's think about, in reality, who manages the home is who's on the brand.
Yeah.
And, the person who's going to be managing the home now just paid $2 million, right? And took out a huge loan in order to move him and his family to take this market and start leading it. And so you're not going to have to worry about incentive alignment with that person.
Yeah.
It's a very talented individual who's put, his family's financial, kind of future really on the line.
Yeah.
And believes he can build, and we believe he can build a great business. But he's going to be fully motivated in a way that, in a way that somebody who doesn't have that same sense of ownership would be. The last thing I'll say is, and this is what I told the owner, and then they totally got after this. I said, it's the opportunity to make money that gets people out of bed in the morning. It's the fear of losing it that keeps them up at night.
Yeah.
And you're now going to have an owner that's fully incentivized both in the morning and at night to make sure he takes great care of your property.
That's very well said. Very well said. And I love how, I think you and I have had conversations, Steve, around ownership, right? Like when people have ownership in things, they do better.
Sure.
They perform better. They start learning more. They get curious. They actually, it's not a job. It's actually a fulfillment. So from your perspective as the franchisee owner, or not franchisee, but franchise owner, where do you see, I'm sure you get to see the coolest blossoms, right? Like people just really come out of their shell because they have resources, they actually have education, they have community, they have culture. It's what's the better part for you when you get to see them, join, like Patriot did?
Quite honestly, it's changed. The franchise model changes people's lives. A lot of times, we have people who are coming in as operators. Maybe they're struggling with certain items that they're just not getting across the finish line, and watching them be able to blossom, as you said, their organization, both in growth and profitability, just finally getting rid of the anxiety of not knowing where they stand financially, having a community where they can have a conversation where they're not alone anymore. It's a blessing to watch these people, turn their lives, better because they get to be part of this community. And I'm personally really grateful for it. And we see it day in and day out, as part of the Casago. So
I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to give us the breaking news and to chat and hear your guys' story. I love it. I think it's going to be very fun. And I'm excited for more episodes in the future as we get to watch the growth.
Yeah. Thanks for letting us come on and announce it.
Yeah, thanks, appreciate it. Of course. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Wil Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.